Well, greetings and salutations, folks. I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to today's upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Medonly. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button. Takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? So for today's upload, I spent about 2.5 to 3 hours on the phone last night, or 2 nights ago, Tuesday night, and then another 45 minutes Wednesday night with a gentleman named Lance. And Lance is a longtime subscriber. Commented a few different times in different uploads I had done back in like 2020, 2021, when I was discussing the very strange kind of disappearances that were going on in Tazewell, Virginia. And then I kind of found this kind of grouping in Tazewell, Mercer County, West Virginia, McDowell County, all throughout kind of the borderlands of Virginia, West Virginia, the most southern tier part. A lot of disappearances, a lot of mysterious deaths, bodies being found in caves. One of the videos he had commented on was when I had called the Tazewell Police Department to verify when Richard Timothy Honecker's body was discovered in a storm drain. Now, prior to that, there was a search party looking for him. Couple months go by, and there is his body in this storm drain found by a hiker. Inadvertently, when I called the police department, I said, I'd like to talk about I'd like some information. I said, my name's Jeff. Jeffrey Michael was my independent reporter name I use. I'd like to ask a few questions, if I could, about the body found in Tazewell in the storm drain there, or storm drainage tunnel. And he said, which one? Meaning 2 bodies. Now, the news only shared one, Richard Timothy Honecker. So that video was evidence of a cover-up. Then I called the Virginia State Police Public Liaison, I forget her name, recorded that conversation, shared it on the channel, asking about the strange disappearances and deaths all in this area. And I have 2 files, one file on West Virginia, one file on Virginia, all within that region. And she was unaware of any of these disappearances or people being found in caves pretty savagely torn apart. Young women just disappearing. Just an older fella walks out his backyard, goes on a walk that he normally on a rural dirt road that he's walked a zillion times before, just gone. So next thing you know, DJ, boots on the ground in Tazewell. If you're watching this, DJ, I haven't spoken to you in a while. I hope you're doing well. I'll reach out to you here soon. But he then informs me, Jeff, there's a bunch of police officers, state troopers, county sheriffs. Check out Facebook. And literally, like 2 to 3 days after that conversation, there was a search for missing people. And they had put it in the news. Hey, if you see police, law enforcement on ATVs, stay out of their way, let them do their job. So then I started to look at the border kind of West Virginia, Mercer, McDowell. A lot of weird, almost a similar thing in Tazewell. The thing is we don't hear about it because the media keeps that hush hush. You have to literally look into it if you want. And so this subscriber named Lance had heard all of this. He's living right in this, like DJ, living in the heart of this strange, high strangeness. And so he sends me an email letting me know that he's been a longtime subscriber and that he's been sitting on an encounter since 1992 that happened in Mercer County, West Virginia. And it's time that he shared it. He's been listening to cryptid encounters, high strangeness, experiences for a long time since he discovered that this topic was on YouTube. So I contact him, and mind you, I'm only aware. I've driven through Virginia. I've never been to like the heart of, and if you look at where Tazewell, Mercer, McDowell is, it's like right at the tail end, bordering like each other and Kentucky. Just really deep in there. So I'm not aware of any of these landmarks or anything like this. The DJ's telling me, I've had 2 different subscribers from Tazewell contact me, DJ being one. And another fella who pretty much verified everything DJ had said up to the strange caves off of the main road there. People seeing a bipedal creature that resembled a fox. Dogman that resembled a fox. Like a reddish color, very strange looking face, bushy tail. Very strange. And I know there's going to be people probably in the comments. That's a type 2 variant 4B. No, it's not. It's a Dogman. It's like saying 2 different people. Like, you know, guy from upstate New York. Another fella from Morocco. You know, the guy from Morocco is a variant A42B. And I'm variant 24C. Just because we have those differences. Whatever. I've always disagreed and hated that variant freaking type 2 whatever. I think it's a added kind of whatever idiocy on it because you're putting a label on something that you're putting a label on a theory. You know what I mean? And it might help people, whatever, but it's kind of complex. You're making it more complex than it has to be. A pseudoscience does not have to be complex. It only gets complex when it becomes, we have one of these suckers. We have a bunch of these suckers on a table, and we're checking their insides and looking and comparing and taking measurements and this and that and this and that. And it's the way I look at it. My own opinion, right? So I end up talking to Lance, and super, super nice guy. But he's absolutely petrified. He's been absolutely petrified to share his experience, to talk about his experience. The only person that he's ever shared these experiences with is people that were involved in it, family members of the people that were involved in it, law enforcement. And we'll get to why law enforcement was involved shortly. So, contacts me and starts talking about the house is not haunted. Well, it is, but the channel mascot decided to blast through. That's why the door opened like that. He's just been having the hardest time. It's coming up on 32, 34 years now when he had this experience. And, where he had it is in Mercer County, in an area that I have no idea. The second he told me about it, I was like, wait, what? And it's an area called Lake Shawnee. And apparently there's this old, abandoned amusement park there. And back in 1992, he and 3 of his friends had decided to go hang out. Obviously, 30-something years, it's not what it was. Now it's not even close to being what it was, back then. Obviously, the 90s were very different than today. And also, it's decayed a lot in the last 30 years. But their whole idea was to get some beers, get some weed. 2 of the guys were getting ready to go to college and call it kind of their last hurrah of the summer. Mind you, we are now at the end of July, not even into August, but it was the last hurrah because everyone was working. Everyone was full-time employed. 2 guys employed getting ready to, saving money to get ready to go to college. So it was their last kind of big deal. Now, weirdly enough, this abandoned amusement park not only is eerie and creepy as hell on its own, even to this day, but the land that it sits on has a history as well. I'm going to get into a quick history of this land and also his experience. Now, in this area, there are documented cases of people witnessing a creature called the White Thing. And they are described as long white-haired creatures, sharp claws, immense jaws, often associated or seen in dark woods, cemeteries, and attributed or looked at as omens of death. Now, this is a kind of folklore of McDowell and Mercer County. We know that folklores usually are based on truth. With urban legends, there's usually a little bit of truth to that, and then it expands. So this is a brief history of the Lake Shawnee abandoned amusement park and the land surrounding it. Located in Mercer County, West Virginia, near the quiet community of Rock, Lake Shawnee Abandoned Amusement Park is more than a local attraction. It's a story that's been passed down for generations. While it's often listed among the world's most haunted destinations, the legend runs deeper than a ghost tale. The folklore surrounding Lake Shawnee has lived on throughout word of mouth, shared by families, neighbors for centuries. Around here, everyone seems to know a story about Lake Shawnee. Some grew up hearing hushed warnings, while others recall relatives swapping strange experiences tied to the old rides and grounds. Whether you believe in curses or coincidence, the land carries a history that feels impossible to ignore. The land's earliest. Long before the carousels arrived, the land held ancient significance. Archaeologists believe that Native American tribes used the area as burial grounds over thousands of years ago. That deep history set a stage for the folklore that would follow. In the late 1700s, frontiersman Mitchell Clay moved his family to the property, settling on 800 acres of wild rolling lands. Local stories tell of a terrible tragedy in 1783 when 2 of Clay's children were killed, and a third was kidnapped and later lost. The grief and bloodshed left a mark on the land that some say was never quite lifted. The amusement park years. By the 20s, the Clay family homestead was just a memory, and a new chapter began. Conley Sindow arrived with big plans. Circular swings, a pond and swimming hole, a dance hall, a speakeasy, and more. Though his vision brought laughter and music to Lake Shawnee, many warned that the land was never meant to be disturbed. Not everyone remembers the park for its tragedies, though. Many would recall Lake Shawnee as a place where families gathered, danced, and enjoyed simple pleasures of the summer. But by 1966, the ride sat empty. Their bright colors faded beneath creeping vines and rust. But even in its silence, those stories, they kept growing. In the 80s, another businessman, Gaylord White, made plans to breathe new life into the park. But as crews dug into the soil, they uncovered Native American artifacts and skeletons, mostly belonging to children. It was a moment that stirred old memories and confirmed what many had long suspected. Lake Shawnee's stories were not just tall tales. Rather than develop the land, the White family chose to leave it as was. The swing remained swaying gently in the breeze, as if holding on to the whispers of the past. Today, Lake Shawnee stands as one of Mercer County's most talked about places. It's not just a haunted spot, it's a living piece of folklore shaped by stories handed down through generations. For some, it's a place where eerie wonder. For others, it's bittersweet memories as childhoods, visits, and family time. Those tales are still told. Some recall ghost stories, while others remember the sound of carnival music drifting through the trees. One thing is for sure, Lake Shawnee's legend is not fading anytime soon. So, on a late July day in 1992, Lance and 3 of his friends planned a last hurrah of their childhood. Some were getting ready for college, others were getting ready for adulthood through jobs, girlfriends, families, becoming adults. And as this was going to happen, these 4 friends who grew up together in this little piece of quiet land in West Virginia wanted to have one last kind of celebration and do what they loved doing, hanging out with each other. So they get everything packed up in their vehicles. They take 2 separate trucks, and they get to the abandoned amusement park. So early afternoon, they pull in and they decide that they're going to set up kind of over by the abandoned Ferris wheel. It overlooks kind of Lake Shawnee. And initially the plans were they were going to camp. So they did have food, they had beers, they were smoking weed. And I bring that up not because it has anything to do with what occurred, but it's kind of something to know. I'm not going to be like the media with like Amber Miller, Tony Aarons, and Christopher Whiteley and all the others when they victim or shame the victim, because you can't on this. You shouldn't anyway. The media is a terrifying and terrible tool for the government. Now, they set up and they're getting everything put together, put the tent up away from where they are going to sit and set a campfire up. And they've got their trucks kind of side by side. Their tents are behind the trucks, overlooking where they're going to hang out, like 40, 50 feet behind everything. There's a couple people that are there walking around, farting around. One guy is using a metal detector. And, everybody says hi. It's locals. Local, they all knew each other, or at least recognized each other, So there's not much of any kind of fear or hiding. People are doing their own thing. They actually had expected other people to be there, middle of summer. And it's kind of not really a local hangout spot at the time, but people went there. It was a place it's an abandoned amusement park that's kind of haunted. There's a history to it. It's just law enforcement is seldom seen down there. They do patrol periodically, but they're not gonna fuck with you if you're, not doing anything completely wrong, especially in 92. So a few of his friends decide that they're going to go swimming. 2 of them. Lance is adamant. He's like, I am not getting in that water. He's like, the stories, there was a kid that supposedly had drowned in the lake in like 1966 or something like that. And he's bringing that up like, I don't want to even go in or near, I'll hang out right where we are, but I'm not jumping in. And strangely enough, where they're sitting, they can kind of see some of the old remnants of the old swing thing. They're by the old Ferris wheel, all skeletonized. Everything's just rusty and very eerie. Even in the early afternoon, late afternoon, imagine what it gets to be like when it's dark. Well, as they're talking and laughing, the kid that he's with that's not swimming brings up like, hey, like, isn't it weird that they're in the lake where the kid died and we're kind of like right next to where the little girl died on the swing. And they kind of both get this really weird chill. He vaguely recalls thinking that they heard a scream. They look at each other, kind of like a faint whisper almost. It's hard to describe. He couldn't even give an exact description of it. Like, it was almost like it was as they were talking about it, the brain kind of put the scream into associated sounds or whatever it's called. But they look at their friends who are in the water, not very deep. They're just dicking off. And they don't notice anything. And they look at the one guy who's still there. The guy who is the metal detector guy. And he's still adamantly doing his own thing. Doesn't look up, look around. So if there was a scream, and they kind of look at each other like, hey, what the hell? And so they kind of shake it off, start talking about, what is going to go on with life afterward. Lance is one of the two that is going to college. Probably an hour goes by, and it's the light is fading. The sun is fading, not fast, but it's getting darker. Things are getting a little more eerie. The metal detector guy kind of makes it known, hey, have a good night, guys. Be safe, yada, yada. I'm out of here. Did you find anything cool? He doesn't remember what they found or what he found, but he did find a couple neat things. And so he ends up leaving. They kind of watch his car pull out, and they decide to start a fire because now it is getting darker. Friends are done with the water. It's getting, temp is a little cooler. It's not ice cold. It's summer in freaking West Virginia. But you've been in the water for an hour, 2 hours. You're going to have some goose pimples on your body, and it's going to be chilly. Dry off. Let's start dinner and get this party going. So that's exactly what they do. They get the fire going. One of them starts the truck and turns the radio on. So they have some music. At one point, they get sick of the fumes, the exhaust. So they turn the truck off and just leave the radio going. It is roughly about 8 o'clock, and it's still visible. Light is, you could still see, but it's getting darker rather quickly now. Maybe a half an hour to 45 minutes of light, and then you're dark. Boop, done. You can see the purple in the sky. You can see around the lake. You can see the woods off in the distance. You can see the very eerie skeletonized remnants of the amusement park. And one of the dudes that was sitting in the back of the pickup truck hanging out jumps up really quick and kind of goes, what the hell is that? And points. And he points in the direction of kind of almost on the shoreline, following the shoreline. There's a set of woods beyond the old parking area, I guess you would call it. He said old parking area, but he's not really sure, because it's not. This thing's like, even at that point, 60 years old. So they all kind of like are like, what is that? And at first they think it's just another person coming out of the woods. The entrance or roadway kind of follows along. And Lance kind of goes, that's not, what is that? He's like, that's not a person. He goes, it's moving like a person, but what the hell is that? And it quickly just goes right into the woods, like, and they're all like, what the fuck was it? You know, this is like 45 seconds of seeing something bipedal come out of the woods, walk around, like it's contemplating on, if it was a person, contemplating on coming out of the woods and walking out into the open, but then decides to go back into the woods rather quickly. And that's exactly what happened. It was very quick, very sudden, and not bright, but visible enough to see. It was not brown. It was not black. It was not. He believes that it was a white, similar to what the white creatures are talked about in that area. But it was not like white paper. You know, it wasn't as bright as a piece of white paper. Also, you're about an eighth of a mile from it. It was not a speck, but something to visibly see. About a half an hour goes by, and they're now eating hot dogs and whatever kind of food they brought with them to quickly cook on a campfire, as well as drinking beers. And it's dark now. Truck radio is on. Both truck radios are on. The furthest one that was not initially started, they turned the lights on because the owner of that truck had a roll bar on the back of it. And by turning, him and his dad had wired the truck up. It was kind of like a mud truck. And by turning the headlights on in high beams, the roll bar had some lights on it. And it would illuminate, you know, so if he was out mudding or, you know, doing stuff, dicking off like regular teenagers do when rural teenagers do. And they had, the lights could turn. So facing straight ahead, or they were on like not a swivel, but you could kind of turn them to face backward as well. And that's what they did. So you had high beams facing the woods that way, and you had now light so you could see what was going on. You had the campfire. And it was pretty bright enough to, if you stared into it, you're going to get rings in your eyes, and it's dark out, so you're not going to be able to see anything until your eyes readjust. They've now forgotten completely about what they had witnessed. Buzzes kicked in a little bit. And they eat, and they start to they quickly like pick up anything that was burnable. They threw in the fire, burned it. They didn't want to have garbage, kicking around. So, and the buddy that is staying back in town, that owns the mud truck, Lance remembers he was in the truck rolling up a joint when everything started to happen. So they're all talking. Lance goes around and turns his radio down, tells the other guy, the other truck owner, to turn his radio down because they can't really hear, they're talking. And he goes back. Now, as he's coming back, he's kind of talking, he's having a conversation with the guy that is in the truck rolling his joint up. And he walks back into the kind of little sitting area that they had created. And he notices that both his friends are not at the tailgate and not in the chairs. They're about 10 feet from the campfire, facing the way they had witnessed whatever that white bipedal thing came out of the woods. Standing there, not saying a word, standing side by side. He quickly kind of goes over and he's like, "What's up, guys?" He doesn't see anything. He's looking, like, trying to figure out what they are looking at. And one of his friends, kind of points his finger and says, watch right there. Watch right there. In a few seconds, you're going to see what looks like a set of eyes pop up, and then looks like they're coming a little closer to us, and then go like dead. And then in a few seconds, you'll see it again. So as he's saying this, the one, look, there it is. And he sees it, Lance sees it, and he's like, holy shit. The friend that's telling him this goes, it's a hell of a lot closer now. Like, it just covered X amount of distance within a very short period of time. He yells to the kid, not Lance, but the kid that is observing all this, yells to the guy that's rolling the joint in the truck, and he yells, "Hey, get your shotgun out. There's something fucking weird in the woods right now." So he's like, "What?" And this is when, back in the day, trucks used to have like that triple or double gun rack in the window. Grabs his shotgun out and like comes running out, like flip-flops, joint, and a shotgun. And goes, what's going on? Just he heard shotgun, come here. And he's looking out, they're all looking, and boom, it's 50 feet closer. And they're like, what in the fuck? What is that? Lance goes to the trucks and turns off the radios. Keys are still turned on in the on position. Radios are off. Lights are still on. And runs back quick. As he's running back, he walks into his friends where they're standing, and the kid that rolled up the joint lets off a rip with the shotgun. Boom! He said, I will never forget how loud that was, because that at that very second is when everything fucking went bad. Everything that was decent and good went bad at that point, and even if he didn't take that shot, it still would have went bad, but just that initial blast is what kind of set the mood for him, set the whole scene for him, like shit's hitting the fan now. After the shot, the friend that had the shotgun that took the shot, he must have brought he had a spotlight in his truck. He must have brought that out with him. Lance didn't notice it because right after the shot was taken, the friend, and I'm not sharing names because he's not talked to two of these friends since it occurred. The third we'll talk about after. He lights this spotlight and it illuminates this, like, it's not as bright as even our flashlights today, like our good flashlights today. Like I have a mini mag light down here that is like, I don't even know the amount of lumens it is, but it's freaking bright. And it's tiny. But these are, this was high tech for back then. And the light kicks on. Ears are ringing. And as that light kicks on, what they see standing like maybe 100 feet from them was what he associates a Dogman to be. Exact description of it was it had kind of grayish white fur. There was no black, there was no brown that he could visibly see. These just bright red eyes. When the light hit the eyes, they were almost like this weird kind of tint to it. They weren't red anymore, only when the light was off. They had almost like a self-illuminating essence to them. But they almost looked like this kind of blackish brown color when the light hit them. And it had a snout about what a longer than a German Shepherd, longer than a wolf. He said its snout was narrow for its face, but very long, almost what a collie snout would look like. Very long, very thin. Thinking back on it, he said it almost could be said that it was beak-like. Just the way it was proportioned in the length of it. It thing is probably 6.5 feet, maybe 7, but definitely 6.5 feet. Shoulders very wide, fur all over, not sporadic, not patchy, very thick, grayish white fur. And hands. He didn't look at the feet. He remembers when the light hit it, he looked at the face and what he could see of the face. And he kind of scanned a little and saw hands. Past that, he doesn't remember. He doesn't even want to say it had or didn't have a tail, because he's not sure at the distance and the amount of time he spent looking at this thing. Its ears were almost on the top of its head, kind of to the side, and like very straight out, almost like they had been like groomed or shaped, but definitely not. You know, it's nobody pinned this thing's ears when it was a puppy. He actually looked to see if the shot had hit it anywhere. He was looking to see if there was any blood and just witnessing what he could see. And it let this kind of a roar, screech roar, very bassy, not any kind of high pitchness to it whatsoever. Very bassy, very deep, very long. This is all within a couple of seconds from spotlight turning on, him observing what he could see, to spotlight going off and what the fuck is that? And they all kind of backtrack. And they can see the eyes still standing where this thing was. And they watch the eyes, or he watches the eyes drop to about 3.5 to 4 feet, and take a couple steps toward him, and then very quickly run back the way he had just come. This thing had just come. So right back towards the woods. They are just, all of them are like, what the hell? What the hell was that? The friend turns his spotlight back on, and the guy who owns the truck, the owner of the spotlight, shotgun, and truck with the mud light, or the mud truck, is in the bed of his truck, moving the back lights a little bit to try and get more visibility on this thing. All they see is a kind of streak of white running quadruped towards the woods. And even at that distance and way it was running away from, he still does not register to this day if it had a tail. He does not understand how this thing, just by the basic design of it, was able to drop down to a quadruped position and run so quickly back the way it had just come. They all are now very shaken up, not kind of knowing what to do. Like, do we stay? Is that thing coming back? They all start to discuss, like, we probably should at least stay for a little bit. We've been drinking. It's a Saturday night. If we get pulled over, you know, by chance we do get pulled over, our future is fucked. We've been drinking all day. Let's see what plays out for a second here. They stoke the fire. They get the fire stoking. And Lance, at this point, notices that his truck, the headlights are very dim. kind of oh shit moment, jumps in the truck, tries to start it. It doesn't start. That little bit kind of killed the battery. Anybody got jumper cables, and you got jumper cables in your truck, bro? I don't have any in my truck. I don't have any either. What are we gonna do? We'll leave your truck here if we gotta go. We'll quickly, if we're leaving, we need to leave rather soon. But still give us enough time to where we're not going to get a D-dub, or have enough confidence to where you're not going to act like an idiot driving and get pulled over. So during this period of time that they're waiting, they've picked up and put everything back in the truck, in the back of the truck. The tent is now packed up. Lawn chairs are in the back of the truck. Fire's still going. That's the last thing that they will mess with. They've got a bucket. They'll dump it on there if they need to go, if they're definitely going. And at this point now, all are saying, we kind of do need to get the fuck out of here. Whatever that thing is not gonna not come back. It's essentially waiting for us to drop our guard. That's the feeling, the just oh shit feeling. And they are just watching this area, like scanning it, trying to figure out his truck. He's come to terms with, fuck it, it's not going to start. We'll just take the truck. We'll take your truck and get out of here. One of us is going to have to ride in the back. 3 of us can fit in the front on a bench seat. And he remembers that because the 3 that weren't driving were kind of bickering about who's going to, ride in the back. 20-30 minutes go by, no alcohol, no weed, sobering up, and they hear what they at that time believed to be a little girl crying, or a child crying. Very pitchy, not bitchy, pitchy, and just kind of somewhere in that vast darkness is what sounds like a little girl crying. So they're looking in the area, like they're like, where is that coming from? The sound literally sounds like a child crying, like fearfully crying. The kid who had the spotlight that the driver of the other truck, shotgun owner, handed him, has the spotlight. He's shining it. And he's the second person that's going to go to college. For some reason, unbeknownst to anybody, he grabs the shotgun off of the tailgate of the truck and just starts running towards where the sound is coming. Lance and his 2 friends are standing there. Like, it happened so quick that even if they wanted to catch him, he was gone. Like, he just booked it, very, very quickly. As it registers what's going on, they watch the light kind of go off in the distance. They distinctly hear the racking of the shotgun. The light, the owner of the mud truck starts to run out. The light goes gone. The light goes off. You hear, or they hear, a yell, almost like a startled yell. You hear the sound of what sounds like a child crying, a adult male startled yell. The light is already off. The mud truck lights are shining, but you have no visibility except shadows beyond a certain point. And then boom, you hear and see the shotgun go off. Like seconds, all within seconds. And they heard another kind of grunt, a pained grunt that was not animal-like, it was human-like. And then you hear what sounds like a splash, a loud splash. They start yelling his name over and over and over again. The friend that owns the truck, the only truck that's running now, jumps in his truck and tells everyone to get in the truck. We're going to go find him. Kind of backs out, facing the way that he had just ran. High beams are on, lights are on, kind of illuminated much more than what the spotlight did, but not daytime where you can see, and he starts to drive in the direction where they believe they heard and saw the shotgun go off. They stop. Everyone's in the front of the cab of the truck right now. And they're looking like around for any kind of sight of their friends. They see the shotgun on the ground. Spotlight is next to the shotgun. Driver of the mud truck jumps out. They all kind of jump out quick. Stay in the light of the truck. Recovers the shotgun. Lance picks up the spotlight and tries to turn it on. And at that point realizes that the spotlight is broken. It looks like it had been kind of just not crushed and mangled, but like almost something or someone grabbed it. Like if you grabbed a can, like a soda can, like if my soda can was facing this way and I grabbed it and squeezed the front of it. The lens was broken. And it's not working. And they're all yelling their friend's name for 15, 20 minutes. At that point, they're like, we gotta get him. We gotta call the police. We need to call the cops. Well, someone needs to, what if he is just, hiding? What if he escapes this thing and he comes back to the site And none of us are here. Take my shotgun, wait by your truck, Lance. You stay with him, the other friend stays with him. I'll run. Contact law enforcement. Get my dad out here. My dad will know what to do. The kid with a monster truck. Boom. They just, okay. Throws him the remnants of the box of shells that he's got for the shotgun. And those two walk back to his truck. The truck, that the battery is so low that when you open the door, there's not even a trickle of light coming from the inside of that truck. It's so dead. Older truck, high schooler, like they just got out of high school. It's not going to be, brand new battery in the truck to last. They stoke the fire a little more to get some light. At about 45 to an hour, 45 minutes to an hour go by, and they see 3 sets of headlights. One they recognize as their buddy's truck. It's just ripping through the area to get to where they are. The next one, they notice that it's his dad. The next vehicle they notice is a West Virginia State Police car. And all 3 just descend on the area. Boom, boom, boom. Get out. Spotlight. Dad's got a spotlight. Law enforcement's got his flashlight. The mud truck guy has got another spotlight with him. They're all kind of looking. State trooper takes the 4 of them, or 3 of them, and says, what the hell's going on? Where's your friend? Tell me what happened. He notices the shotgun on the tailgate. And he says, whoa, why do you have a gun? They all are kind of like real quiet at this point, because they know how insane this is going to sound. So the mud truck kid looks at his dad, because when he had gotten home, he told his dad a real quick kind of what had gone on, and the dad looks at the state trooper and says, listen, they're not lying about this. My son doesn't lie. This is exactly word for word what happened. Tells them, and they instantly could tell that state trooper did not believe a word they were saying. Kind of like that bullshit, you guys killed your friend. About an hour to 2 hours later, they're all still there, still yelling for their friend's name. 2 other state police come rolling out very quickly. A few other law enforcement agencies. There's a paramedic on scene and a couple fire trucks. And it's literally every freaking spotlight this whole place is illuminated. And no sign. It's dark. Listen, let's kind of make a perimeter of where he was, where kind of you might have heard a splash or whatever you heard. Let's grid this out. And the three of them are loaded in the back of the state police car and brought to law enforcement. All three are questioned for hours. Parents are there. Lawyer is there. They're just, daytime is upon everyone. And the three are let go. Don't go anywhere. Just in case we need to arrest you, essentially, for killing your friend. At that point, there's a search for him for a couple of days. They have a search and rescue operation. West Virginia Search and Rescue comes and they have a boat. They end up scuba diving, looking for evidence of him. Nothing. At which point, they're about a week into the search. Only thing that was recovered was that shotgun and that crunched lamp spotlight. Which each time it seems like anyone's questioned, that spotlight is brought up, is right there in the interrogation room. And then Lance, I'll never forget what happened next. As I'm sitting in, he's like, I believe all three of us were at the station. He goes, but we weren't in the proximity of each other. They were keeping us separated. Even when we were at home, they were told to stay away, don't talk to each other, with threats of arrest. Well, at this point, 2 FBI agents search come in, and he will always remember what that card looked like that was handed to them, what that meant. CIRG, Critical Incident Response Group. And apparently it's some kind of, if there is a disappearance and there is some sort of strangeness behind that disappearance, more or less, these are the ones that come in. They are all grilled. And at this point, no one's been charged because you don't have any evidence that these kids did anything. There was any kind of reason for them to do what they were getting accused of. And when I say getting accused of, it was almost like they were and weren't getting accused of possibly taking their friend's life. Just really sad for all of them. About a month goes by. Lance is getting ready to go away for college. It's like a week before college starts for him. And he's called back into the police station. And those 2 FBI agents are there. And they start asking him questions about, what exactly did you hear? Let's literally figure out everything. That noise that they heard was described as a child or a girl crying. The noise it made when the shot was taken at it was very bassy, very aggressive. They're told not to still stay away from each other. Still kind of wearing the scarlet letter of "you killed your friend." And Lance goes to college. During that period of time, he's in communication with his parents, obviously. Like, what's the news? Nothing. There's no any kind of recovery, any kind of clue. The 2 things that were associated with him prior to the disappearance was that spotlight and that old shotgun. What about that splash? What, tell us about this. Tell us about where, if you were standing, where were you standing? Let's go back to the place. Tell us, you're standing here? Maybe, well, where in proximity to you would be the shotgun, your visibility, this, and that. FBI is the first to pull out. State troopers continue to look for very little bit of time, not long at all. They pull out. And now it's kind of county, local. After the X amount of years, nothing. His family ended up moving away from the area. Lance believes it was 2 sisters. Could have been a brother and a sister. It's not really coming to him. He tries to block a lot of this out. And it was unforgettable. Whispers throughout the town. So, from the couple of years he was in college, he'd come back for a break. There was a couple of theories. One, that they were responsible for it. 2, that he had gotten into something and someone followed him. Like he owed money or something. They were coming up with kind of any kind of whatever. And he was kidnapped. But that wouldn't make any sense. And they all thought about that. Not law enforcement, but they were the ones making the theories for this. Or he ran away. One of the police officers kind of was convinced that he had packed a bag and you guys didn't realize that he had a bag, kind of a to-go bag with him, that he was probably upset that he wasn't going to college. He didn't have the money to go. He wanted to go, but he did not have the money to go. And ended it for himself. Or just, or he ran away and is in Canada somewhere. So Lance is still in the area. He said, try to look it up. He said, what's crazy is if you try to look this up, look up any kind of anything in that area, and there are vague dates for the girl, vague dates for the boy who was dead there. And if you look into the news, if you not regular Google or AI Google, but if you go to news, you may be able to find a very small mention of it. He goes, chances are any kind of mention in any newspaper back in the day was not microfished and then, or put on microfiche and then updated and put into the computer system. They don't have the dates for it's just such a bizarre, that family moved and none of it. Mud truck guy still lives in the area. The other friend, he was gonna stay in the area, but then ended up moving a couple years later, and that's been it for now. It still haunts him to this day, knowing that the last thing that they all had or shared together was a moment of panic and fear standing by a tailgate, hearing a child crying, screaming like it was in pain, and nothing else they could do. He asked me if that thing, could it have been a Dogman? And I said, could have been. Could have easily been a Dogman. And then he says, well, if it was a Dogman, why, instead of, if it was responsible for his, disappearance, what was that splash? Why wouldn't it just grab him and run to the woods, which kind of encompass the area? But what was that splash at that lake? Obviously there was nothing in there because they dove in there, they searched it. But what was and why? Do these things live underwater? This is his question to me. And I said, I wouldn't say they do. I've heard they do be good, but very good swimmers, very good tree climbers. Not too much that these things are afraid of or won't do. They are in the woods, in the rural communities. It's tragic. So with that, I'd like to thank Lance. Thank you for sharing this with us. Like I said, ending the conversation with you. Thank you. And if you decide that you want to come on the show, you're more than welcome to. I don't know what else to say except a very tragic case. And that is today's upload. I'd like to thank everybody for supporting the channel. It is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.